You matter.
Okay.
You do count. You are loved. You are cared for. You can do amazing things.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey. The journey.
New sheriff in town, and his name is
The journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is
The journey. The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The journey. The journey. The journey. The journey.
Welcome back to another edition of The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we got another one. But this is going to be a little bit different. But first, before we go to our guest, I want to give you a quote. It's from an author by the name of Peter Haggerty. Life is a journey, and if you fall in love with that journey, you will be in love forever. And today, our guest is going to really add life to those words. Today we have Roby IV, University of Memphis graduate, arts, film, dance, world traveler, studied in France, and we got a little treat for you. He's about to be a sommelier. And for you all that don't know what that means, you'll find out soon. In addition to that, he's a self-professed mama's boy, grandmama's boy.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, we have Mr. Roby IV. What's up, Rob?
Hello, how are you doing today,
Good,
sir?
man, good. Glad you could join
Well,
us.
thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, tell me about where you grew up and, where did you spend your early years and what did you get from that community?
Oh, wow. Born here in Memphis, Tennessee, South Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. South.
Oh, yeah. But raised somewhat in Jackson, Tennessee by
Okay.
my grandmother.
Okay.
So the outlook of South Memphis in this particular time that I can remember was changing, ever changing. Saw a lot of activity, maybe deemed as negative, and there's a lot of good things going on in the neighborhood that wasn't spoken of as well.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we're over there on Macklemore across the street from Centenary Church, if
Oh, wow.
anyone's familiar with that.
Okay.
But in Jackson, Tennessee, it was in East Jackson, right down the street from Lane College, across the street from what used to be Mary High School, but it's now Jackson Central Mary High School.
Okay.
And so the aspect of that community was community. One of those situations where you can go across the street and borrow sugar, flour, milk, or whatever. So
Cool.
I had the opportunity where the village actually raised the children.
Okay. Outside of your parents, and I'm going to add your grandmama in that group with your parents.
Sure.
Outside of them, who had the biggest influence on your life?
It's a couple of people.
Okay.
And most of these people are going to be in music. My first influence was Helen Redding at Jackson Central Mary High School,
Okay,
taking a
okay.
chance on a kid. I taught myself how to read. It was kind of hard,
Oh, wow.
piano.
Okay.
So she challenged me with that.
Okay.
Coming back to Memphis, and it was Donna Polk at Kingsbury High School. I ended up being a student accompanist, and I had to force myself to just learn stuff. My grade came from learning the music for the choir, more so than singing. Even though I did have a strong voice, she just wanted an accompanist and wanted that right of having a student accompanist, which led me to Walter Martin, who and Dr. Mildred Green that gave me a full music scholarship to Lamont College as a student accompanist and ended up being a student director there.
Wow.
But the biggest influence outside all of them would be Benny Wilson. She's a vocal coach and pianist. She stayed on me with piano. And then there's Stephen Lamont Hayes.
Okay. So you had a whole bunch of
lot of
influences.
people. Yes, a lot of people that stuck out in my mind.
So how different? Every kid has a dream. Mine was basketball. I wanted to be I wanted to be in the NBA. Everybody has a dream as a kid. How different are you from those dreams of your childhood?
It's a little different.
Okay. So tell us about it.
I saw Sammy Davis Jr. And Gregory Hines tap.
Okay.
I wanted to do that. So I put on what we call Sunday shoes and just got on the hardwood floor and clank, 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 clank.
Right.
Life altering. Now I'm in the restaurant industry.
Okay.
Lead server at a premier steakhouse here in Memphis, Tennessee. Most expensive menu, part of Flight Restaurant Incorporated.
Okay.
So didn't think I would ever be in this particular situation, but I'm here.
Okay. All right. So in life, when did it kind of start to make sense and you knew that I can do this, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be all right.
Everyone has that aha moment.
Okay.
And when I realized that I was a zig-zag, more than anything, I'm so good in so many different areas. I'm like, well, the thing was like, I can do anything if I put my mind to it.
Right.
But what is that thing I wanted to do?
Right.
And it ended up being the food and restaurant industry. There's a lot of things I still love about things outside of that.
Right.
But now the premier focus is food and beverage.
Wait a minute, you started out with music and arts and theater and dance, and you've kind of matriculated over to the food and beverage industry. Wow, okay. I'm gonna have to find out in the next segment how you made that transition.
Yes, sir.
You know, because I don't know too many people that, you know, fall out of love with dance and
Oh, it's
music.
still all art.
Really?
It's all art.
Okay. All right. All right. So what's your why? You know, what drives you every morning? What, you know, gets you out of bed and, you know, even when you're having a tough day?
Life.
Okay.
Myself.
Unpack that a little bit.
Either I can stay here and rot,
Okay.
stay here and what could have been, but I can go out here and get whatever it is that it's supposed to be for me. It's a life of discovery, a life of adventure. This is what wakes me up, being able to get out there and create something for myself and create a legacy for my nieces and nephews.
Okay. So we opened the show with a quote about falling in love with the journey. Have you fallen in love with your journey?
I have.
Okay.
It took a minute. It took a long time.
Okay.
But yes, this is, everything leads to what people say it is what it is.
Right.
Well, it is what it is. At the same time, it's up to me to direct it whichever way I want it to go.
Well, you're still learning. You're
Yes, sir.
still learning. You're still growing. And in fact, tell everybody what you're learning to become.
Oh, well, so in Flight Restaurant Incorporated, our owner challenged me with doing wine.
Okay.
In this particular instance, this is becoming a sommelier, which is a wine tasting expert. There's 4 to 5 different levels. And I'm starting with studies. I've started with studies with level 1.
Okay.
So my whole thing of falling in love with wine, where it comes from, what it smells like, how is it made, viticulture, topography. I mean, it's all a science and an art, all impacting just a grape.
Okay. Well, listen, before this show is over, we're going to see just how good of a wine sommelier Mr. Roby is. So listen, we got one last question.
Sure.
Let me see how I can present this to you. So, there's always an opportunity as a young black man where you're confronted with the fact that you're a young black man. That typically happens in everybody's life. Can you tell me the time when you realized first that you was a black man?
Yeah.
Well, hold on for a second. I can see it in your face. I can see it. Listen, we're going to be right back on the journey. And we're going to come back with Mr. Roby's experience. So listen, don't go anywhere. Larry Robinson, The Journey, KUDZUKIAN Network. We'll be right back after this.
KUDZUKIAN.
Based in Memphis, but it is international.
A new building, an expanded team, new equipment, a new studio, all inside of 7 years.
The resources that we were able to utilize with Kozukian and their team has been incredible. And our partners at Kozukian has been a large part of our success.
One, it's black owned. So we get to tell our own stories in our own way. I'm so proud of the founder, Larry Robinson, and his entire family and all of the team here at Kozukian.
We are so proud of their progress that they've made here in Memphis.
With social media and the technology we have today, the world is listening.
KUDZUKIAN. Check out all your KUDZUKIAN favorites now. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
We are back on the journey. Our guest today is Mr. Robert Roby IV. Listen, Robert, we were going out the previous segment, and we were talking about that experience you had when you learned that you were a black man. Tell us about it.
Had to be about 7 years old.
Okay.
And I remember going to a store in Jackson, Tennessee called Highland Park Grocery.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. My aunt sent me into some butter, some milk, and something else. And I walked in the store, and I'm always fast, just going up and down the aisles, just grabbing everything I need to grab. Right as I was walking up maybe the second or third aisle, I was met with 4 of the employees at the store, all Caucasian. And like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just have this in my hand. They patted my clothes and things like that.
Wow.
Did not get an apology or anything, and just shaken. I still went to the checkout, bought everything, had more than enough money to get it, and I walked out with my head down. So my aunt surprised. She wanted to ask me a question, but she didn't. She waited till we got home. She said, well, what's with this mood change?
Right.
And I told her what happened. And here comes the conversation about this is what it's like. We didn't, in Jackson, you didn't too much have to have a conversation about the police. You know, it was so things about, a lot of crime didn't happen in this particular time.
Okay.
And so it wasn't one of those conversations of being harassed by the police, but this is what the city of Jackson, or these people that you come in contact with, black and white, what they deemed us as. Thieves, robbers, stealers, people just want to take, and things like that. Because you could hear little small conversations they were saying, whether to call the police or not, and we had to have a real conversation.
For a young guy 7 years old, I'm sure that was a pretty traumatic experience. So much so, as a grown man, you probably felt like it's probably yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go back there. Let's rewind. Let's talk about your childhood. So you spent some time in Jackson, spent some time in South Memphis. Tell us about home life. You know, who was into home with you? Mother, father, grandmother, grandfather?
Well, growing up, it was my mom and my dad. And I don't like to use melismas or default from the truth. So my life is a little interesting. My parents did make it as a couple.
Okay.
A nasty divorce. In that particular time, I had to go stay with my grandmother, which ended up being for 10 years. So this is 10 years outside of my father. My mom just coming and visit me. So it's almost like parentless.
Okay.
So she was my parent.
Okay.
My great-grandmother, she was my parent. My aunts and my uncles, they were my parents. Not saying that my mom didn't do anything, because she did all that she could do. She was here every holiday, bringing things, but it's different when you can't touch your parents, if that makes sense.
How relationship with your father?
My relationship with my father didn't exist for 10 of those years, solely because what I saw as a kid frightened me. I didn't want to be around him.
Whoa.
I didn't want to be around him.
Unpack that for a son.
Yeah.
To not want to be around their dad. What happened?
Well, it was just, there was mental and physical abuse.
Okay.
Now, I can say, after all of this, my mom and dad are best friends now. Believe it or not, they can talk anything dealing with us, about each other. My dad is remarried, no particular problems in this relationship. I have a great relationship with my stepmother.
Okay.
But to answer your question, going back to the base of it, my grandmother, I didn't even know that we were in a poor situation. Didn't know what poor was. So there was so much love in that house. I didn't see anything until I had to go back to Memphis and going to 10th grade, and I had to stay with my father. Wow. And so, but I had opportunity to understand everything. You know, I saw, only thing I had was a mother's perspective. You know, sons cling to their mothers. My sister, she clinged to my father because it just happens that way, right? And then understand even he apologizing and the situation he was brought into in a particular time, and said, you know, there are two sides to every story. And understanding my dad's side, I'm like, wow, I could see how certain things that happen in relationships, and how communication is not. Some people always want to say it's about communication. No, it's about understanding. You can communicate all you want to communicate, but if I'm not understanding where you're coming from, and vice versa, this relationship was all about. It was complete. It was not yoked at all. Wow. You know, and so years and years later, now they're great friends. I can go talk to my dad about any and everything. He's not this monster that I thought that he was, and I had to find that out. Moving here in 10th grade, attending Central High School, and I'm like, it's not that bad. It was a transitional semester. Then in the very next semester, I'm like, no, this isn't bad at all. And then it had the opportunity for me to then understand, like, oh, growing up, we didn't have anything in Jackson. I didn't know. You know, my mom.
Well, you're bringing up some good stuff, but hold on, I gotta ask you this. Tell us about a great memory of your childhood.
Oh man, okay. Now, it's great memories is a lot. Honestly, how my dad would actually pick me up. Believe it or not, put me on his arm. We'll walk to the store. I could pick up as much candy I want. Even going to church. It's an elder in the Church of God of Christ. My mom was this songstress. I mean, she can sing anything. My mom is like one of the best singers ever in my opinion.
So it's in the DNA.
It's in the DNA.
The art's in the DNA.
It's in the DNA.
Okay.
So I'll be the first person, the kid run. I want to turn on all the lights at Greater Community Temple North. That was the only Greater Community Temple. Bishop W.L. Porter was the pastor then. So I'm running, turn on these lights, and when church was over with, I wanted to turn them off one by one and see everything. So it was all about, with me, it was discovery. It was candy, lights. I would see people dancing, Sammy Davis Jr. on television. How do I get to that? How do I do this? So it's a life surrounded by music and church. Music, church, music, church.
So music was really ingrained into who you are as
Absolutely.
a man. Okay, so teen years. Let's go to your teen years. I would imagine you're back in Memphis, Central High School. Tell us about that transition of saying, okay, I think I want to go to college. What was that one thing that kind of made you say, there's another level here?
I knew that in elementary school. Okay. I like to say that all of my aunts were educators. My grandmother couldn't afford anything. I think it was Dr. Hooks sent all of my aunts through college at Lane College based on a scholarship. All of them became educators. So there's 11 children, 8 girls, 3 boys. All the girls sent to school. And I knew then, you know, like college was just ingrained. It was one of the situations like, and then the Cosby Show, I have to be honest, you know, like
the
Huxtables and going into a different world. It's like, I want that. I want that pleasuring experience. I want to know what it's like to give a presentation in class. I wanted all of this. So college was something, it had to happen. And so going to teenage years, going to high school, it's like, how do I make this happen? All these different transitions. So then it's like focusing in on music, focusing in on dance, finding other loves, like wanting to discover a little bit more about science, which comes in later, now that I'm dealing with wine. You know, so just finding different things, but I knew I had to go to college. It's just something that I wanted for myself.
Okay, now you're going from college to adulthood. Tell us about that transition, because for me, it was crazy. It was the first bills, all that. So for you, what was it like?
So I thought I wanted to be grown, man.
Didn't we all?
I wanted to be grown. And then when adulthood hits you in your face, like making decisions, paying bills, as you would say, budgeting, how, you know, the importance of saving, adventure, find time for everything to make sure that you're still just mentally capable to do anything, right? Adulthood, it was a kind of tumultuous, but it was a beautiful transition. It took me a little longer than my brothers and sisters because I was a partier. And then being able to study abroad, I didn't want to stop on the school's dime. So every other semester or every other year, I'm out of the country, because I just wanted to discover. Sometimes I let my parents know, sometimes I wouldn't let them know, but I was gone. Going into adulthood was like, what do I do with all of this information I've acquired through the years? And finding a lane made it a little difficult for me, but at the same time, it was one of the best adventures in hindsight. that I've had.
I can only imagine.
Yes.
So listen, let me ask you about the city of Memphis. What role did the city of Memphis play in your development as an adult?
Honestly, Memphis City Schools at that time played a pivotal role.
Okay.
An opportunity to do camps. You had teachers. I'm not saying that teachers don't care now. I'm never going to say that because I don't know what a teacher truly have to go through. But you had teachers who were planted in your life, were interested in what was going on with you, wanted to see how far you could go, would introduce you to different other things. We had college fairs. You had your counselors setting you up with different particular schools that they thought.
Shout out to your favorite teacher. Who's that one? Who's that one who?
Oh, wow. This would be Donna Polk at Kingsbury High School.
Okay.
And then our second would be June Glenn for Central High School.
Okay. All right. Well, then they're going to be happy to know that we're going to give you a test because you want to be and are very much in line to be a sommelier.
Yes.
What is a sommelier?
Okay, a sommelier is someone who has studied viticulture, typography. So it's a study of wine.
Okay, all right.
So everything
You
comes
was about
from
to say, that was about to be a $10 word, viticulture and sommelier. So I know what sommelier means, but the viticulture part, I was like, wait a minute now, you done threw a new word on it.
Viticulture and viniculture all depends. It's all on the wine and the winemaking process.
Okay.
So this goes all the way to the grapevine itself.
Okay.
How it's planted, where it's planted, the nutrients in the ground.
Now, how did that come with your career? Because you were in the arts.
I was in the arts.
And then you moved into food and beverage,
Oh,
but
man.
I'm thinking waiter, waitress, something waiter, maitre d', host.
I didn't even think this was even going to happen. I went from just arts, and I love arts. I dabble and dabble in it to this day. It doesn't mean it has to stop.
Okay.
But went to arts and tried to do corporate America, became admin assistant, personal assistant. I did so many different things.
All over the place.
It's a zig-zag.
So as we talk about life success not being a linear event. You're going to fall down. You're going to move around. You're going to have some issues. But today, we're going to give Mr. Roby a test. We have some vino here.
All right.
We covered up the label so that you wouldn't know what it was. And we want to give you a little bit. And we want to see just how talented. Here, let me give that to you. And I'm going to take a little bit myself just to get a little bit of vino. And tell me what you, as a sommelier, what are you looking at?
I have a red wine. The way it looks, I would say it's a Pinot Noir, based upon the red. There's different things you have to test out with this. The first thing would be looking at it. Is it clear? Is it hazy? Is it turbid? This is clear. You can see through it, okay? The next thing I want to do is indicate the color. The color I would say is ruby. Is there any rim variation, which means if it's darker in the center and there's a lighten up onto the outside edges. Okay. There's not much a rim variation. It's hard to see when you don't have a white background in this particular case.
Right.
Then I want to check and see if there's any staining on the glass or we have tears or legs.
Okay.
So the tears will mean this right here.
Okay.
It has tearing. This is light tearing. So if I would say, based upon what I've seen so far, this could possibly be a young wine.
A young wine.
Young wine. So after this.
So does it make a difference whether it's a young versus an older wine?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends on your palate and what you like. Older wine, what people say, fine and with time, that's subjection. This depends.
So that's not necessarily true. That old wine will taste better or be better.
No, it's more so true dealing with brandy and cognac more so than the wine. Wine picks up, and some wines do. Let's be completely honest. There's some that are barreled for 4 and 5 years and can't be sold till after 4 or 5 years of barreling and 4 months of sitting in a bottle. Then you can sell it at the first after January, right? Oh. So what I want to do now is smell.
Okay.
I'm seeing, I smell some red fruit. Subtle notes of strawberry.
Okay. Well, listen, let's grab a drink,
Okay.
and then you tell me what are you drinking?
All right. This is my favorite grape. This has to be my favorite grape. This has to be a Pinot Noir.
Bing, 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 bing,
This has to be
bing,
Pinot
bing,
Noir.
bing. He knows what is happening.
This has
Great job. Absolutely. It's a Pinot Noir, very common Pinot Noir. Picked it up at Kroger's.
Okay, cool.
So, back to the interview. Mm-hmm. Are there any regrets in your life? Are there things that you wish you could do over again?
I used to say, well, no, there's nothing I wish I could do over again. Of course, we think about these things that we could do over again, but then I wouldn't be who I am right now.
Okay.
I'm grateful for all the experience. I have some great, awesome ones. I have some horrible ones. I have some in between. But this created the Robert Lee and Roby IV that's sitting with you right here today.
Okay. Going back to that young man. Mm-hmm. That young man that maybe been sitting in the kitchen in Jackson.
Yes, I was.
If you had a statement that you could make to that young man, what would you say to him?
You matter.
Okay.
You do count. You are loved. You are cared for. Mm-hmm. You can do amazing things.
Wow.
There's a lot of things that I just didn't know. It was just probably just thought that was understood.
Right.
But you are loved. You are cared for. You matter.
Okay.
You can do amazing things.
Awesome. Now, that was talking to you. I want you to look in that camera right there. Young men all over the country, and specifically here in Memphis, are looking at you, and I want you to tell them what the Robert Roby words of wisdom. Give them some words of wisdom that they can carry with them beyond this interview.
You are not a statistic. You are wonderful. You are fearfully and marvelously made. And you may have heard that before. But you choose your road. There's nothing wrong with the road that you may want to choose to success. You define success the way you would like to find it. And more so than finding it, discover it. Educate yourself. Get more out of it. Get all that you can get out of it. There's not one road to success. Use my stories that I'm a zigzag. Sometimes you're going to go this way and that way, but eventually you end up on the right road and get everything you can get out of it.
I can't say anything more other than this is the journey on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Today you've got a wonderful opportunity to listen to Mr. Robert Roby IV. Come back. Next episode, we're going to do it again and again. So please continue to follow us on the journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, for Mr. Robert Roby IV. Thank you. Till the next time. Take care.
To hear more incredible stories like this, be sure to download the KUDZUKIAN app from the App Store or Google Play, or check out the Journey Memphis podcast on all your major podcast providers. Also, check us out on the KUDZUKIAN Network.